Hi, I'm C. Travis Webb, founder of Yo-Do Software Corp, and I am here with my wonderful assistant, Mairead Staunton.
Hi, I'm Mairead. I'm the operations manager at Yo-Do.
So thanks for joining us. Like our previous webinars, we are talking about challenges, solutions, and just the various struggles that you deal with as a small service business, or even really a medium-sized service business. I mean, these are things and principles that are going to apply kind of regardless of the size of your service business. And today we're going to talk about not giving consumers, although I would like to extend this out not just to consumers, but also employees, too many choices. And Mairead, what is the actual title of our webinar?
Limiting choices, improving efficiency, not giving your customers too many options.
Yeah, this is our attempt at a catchy to cut through the noise of social media, so some people will find it and find it interesting. So, um, it's one of these things. Some people get it intuitively, right? It used to be, at least when I was younger and before I was married and then had my dating life, it was intuitively you understood not to give someone too many choices, right? If you were going to go ask someone out or you wanted to make yourself available to someone. So kind of intuitively, we understand that sometimes giving people too many choices is not a good thing. That overexposure, right? This is an issue that happens too. If there's overexposure, Taylor Swift got accused of this, not too long ago. Like if you make yourself too available, too visible, then it degrades the value of your product or service. So this is kind of an extension of that. Um, the weird thing is that as soon as you start running a business, you feel, yeah, at least we did when we were running our business, you feel differently about it. Like, wait, well, we want to make sure we give we want to make ourselves fully available to you. We want to be there at all times. If you pick up the phone, we'll be there. And this is a huge mistake. It is definitely not something that you want to do as a small business owner. Ray, were you about to add something to that?
But if you want to put it in like therapy speak, it's funny because this kind of relates to like setting boundaries, but you would never think of it in this way when you're limiting the options that you're providing your customers.
Yeah. That's right. It doesn't. It's not what you do reflexively. You're trying to provide a service. You're probably really into your service if you're in a service business, or you're certainly very practiced and very good at it. You want to help people. You want to teach, whatever the case may be. So we're going to go through that today. We're going to talk a little bit about it. I'm going to give you some research on this. We're going to talk about practically what it looks like with a calendar, and we'll get into our software towards the end. Our solution to it is again, our value add here is that we are talking about real problems. There are other ways to solve this than our software tool, right? We're not the only tool on the market that does it. Although I will say, there's a lot of feature parity out there in our space, but we're on a pretty short list with how we handle availability. We're not the only one that does this, but it's not very many of our competitors that approach it this way, and that comes just directly from our own experience. So let me go ahead and share my. I have a couple of slides here. Share window. There we go. And it looks like you guys can see this. Yeah. Let me move my window here. Okay, actually, wait 1 second. Sorry to fiddle around, but okay, there we go. All right, so we're going to talk about jam. I picked jam just because it's an everyday, probably almost, I don't know that I've ever met anyone that doesn't like jam. And there are great varieties of jelly and jam when you go into a typical grocery store. And in 2000, Angar and Leopard did a study. So shoppers at a California gourmet store saw either 6 different types of jam or 24 different types of jam on display. So when they saw a display of 24 types of jam, you got a much higher rate of people that stopped at the display. And this, again, is fairly intuitive, right? You're walking through a grocery store and boom, you see this giant display of jam. You go like, whoa, that's a lot of jam. Like I didn't understand they made ghost pepper grape jam or something like that, right? And so you had a higher rate of people stopping by and looking and browsing what was there versus 40% when there was just 6. But, and here's the most important thing, if you are making jam, right, or you're a grocery store and you're selling it, it's not about whether people stop, right? This isn't social media. It's not attention economy. You need a commercial transaction. You want someone to give you money for your product. In our terms, you want someone to give you money for your service. So when it came to buying, so 30% of the people that stopped purchased Jam when there were only 6 units on display, or 6 types on display, not 6 units, 6 types, compared to only 3% when there were 24. Why? Well, the Germans have a word for this, term for this. It's called the agony of choice, right? If you give people too many options, if you give people too many choices, what you are actually doing is generating and creating anxiety for the customer. Literally, it is a more anxious experience for someone to be confronted with too many options. Sometimes this happens if you go into like a really good Jewish deli and there's like, the menu is like 8 pages long. Cheesecake Factory has the same problem. So, again, it's a really nice way if you've got a large, diverse group of people, you can everyone can kind of get what they want. But from an individual perspective of someone transacting, again, you want someone to buy your jam, you want to sell your product, you want to sell your service, you're actually doing yourself a disservice when you give people too many choices. Now, I didn't include this on the slide, but this is also true for employees. Now, I don't mean you don't want to give your employees false choices, but when we call people who provide the service, Yo-Do's internal term for that is a curator. And you'll hear me refer to this all the time because this is a fairly unique insight for us, which is that, a person who is cutting your hair in our terms is a curator, just like someone who is performing a back adjustment at a chiropractor's office is a curator, or an acupuncturist, or a music teacher, or a foreign language teacher, or a plumber, right? These are all people who have a very specialized set of knowledge, and you need access to that knowledge in order to receive the service. So we call them curators. Fundamentally, so these are your employees. These are the people that are delivering your service. This is how you make money as a service business. It is much better for you to give your employees structured time in which to deliver the service instead of open-ended schedules. When we first had our music teaching company, we wanted to, if we got a music teacher and they said, like, you know what, I'm completely free, like I'm gigging on the weekends, I'm gigging Friday and Saturday, I will teach all day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll be here at 10 o'clock in the morning. Rain's laughing because Ray, obviously it has a lot of experience at this. I'll be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll teach till 10 o'clock at night. Just fill me up. I'll eat when I can or whatever. And you definitely get people that are hard chargers and they will do this, and you will absolutely burn them out. You will completely burn through them like a firework. You'll have them for a year, 6 months, 18 months. They all eventually burn out. It's untenable. So it is much better if you're running this kind of business, and this applies again to a lot of service businesses. It is much better if you enforce structured time. People need time to recharge. They need time to adjust their priorities. Now, of course, this might mean less money for someone who's really trying to hustle. And it's a balancing act, right? Sometimes you have people that, have larger work capacities than others. But this principle of limiting choices applies across the board, and you want to do it fairly. You want to do it judiciously, of course. So, and this is one study. You can go into like ChatGPT and type this in. You'll find scores of studies. Go on Google, find it. It's a well-known problem. So let's talk specifically about service businesses now. Now, unlike selling a bottle of shampoo or jam, right, where you have a quantity, right, your quantity is your spot on the calendar. So let's take something. Now this is a screenshot from Calendly. Calendly is a great app. I'm nothing against it. It has a very different approach to scheduling than we do. But this is what, and I picked one that had a 30-minute increment because I couldn't get a good screenshot of one that does 15. But you'll see this a lot, especially like if you look for appointments, if someone will send you an invite and you look for an appointment, especially for larger companies, like you might see something that's like, say 9 to 5, right? Someone has availability, and you'll see 9, 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, 10, 10:15, 10:30, 10:40, like just a sea of blue squares, right? Or a scroll in this instance. So if you're giving someone a 5-hour shift, right? Like let's say I'm just saying a typical service provider, 5 to 8 hour shift, and a customer comes to your portal, right? what they're going to see if you give them, and this is going to be negative for both parties, right? What you're going to see when you come in here is in a 5-hour shift, you're giving them 10 slots to look at. And if it's 15-minute increments, which is very common with most service business software out there, or just calendaring software, scheduling software, you'll have 20 available slots for a 5-hour shift in 15-minute increments. That is a lot of stuff to scroll through. This is just 9 right here, right? So as soon as a consumer sees this, this is immediate friction. Like, oh wait, do I have time at 9:30? What about 10:30? 10:30? Like it just immediately increases the anxiety. It raises the friction around the purchase. It makes it more difficult to convert. It's also way worse for your employees, because now they have to hold all of this availability open. So again, you're hiring someone to provide a service. Now, I understand that different professionals have different workloads that are assigned to them. So a plumber is very likely to quickly fill up their day because most markets have greater need than supply for that service. That's not as true for music schools, right? So it takes time for people to build their schedules up. This is true for personal trainers. It takes time to build their schedules up. Beauty, time to build the schedule up. You have to build relationships with people. So assuming that is your situation, you're creating a manifestly worse work environment for your employees by giving a completely wide open availability. It's not as a positive work experience for them. So the ideal setup is you want to give your customers, and thereby extension your employees, about 3 to 4 options. And it should look something like this. When they are scheduled to start, when they are scheduled to finish, before and after their next appointment. That's roughly what you want to shoot for, right? So if you have someone that has a 12 to 5 shift or a 3 to 8 shift or whatever it is, or a 9 to 5 shift, and they're first starting out, the very first appointment you want to land. Now, I'm not saying this is etched in stone. There's variety, of course. Maybe someone says, oh, I prefer to start my day at 12 and then build out from there. So of course you take that person's preference into consideration. But it's when it starts, when it ends, and then you build out from there. As soon as you have an appointment on the calendar, that's your anchor. And you build out, you radiate out from that anchor. And what you will find is, we found this consistently, that it doesn't reduce your signups. And in fact, once we implemented Yo-Do at the business we sold, like our signups blew up because it provides a scaffolding and it provides structure. Now, again, caveats to this. Someone calls you, they're really interested in coming in. You talk to your curator, you talk to your teacher, your therapist, they're willing to come in. Of course you do that, right? These are human interactions. You make accommodations for people. It doesn't have to be limited to 3 or 4, but in general, this is how you want to approach it. Reid, were you going to add something to that?
I think just generally the kind of client that's going to call in and look for the time that they want over the phone with you is going to be a slightly different client than the one that's going to book themselves online too, is kind of another understanding to that. And
100%.
so the client,
100%.
yeah. So the client who's going to be online, you want them to finish that transaction in a way that's really different to when they're on the phone.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And that's exactly right. You are dealing with different buying habits, and someone that calls in is looking for more of an interaction, right? They're looking for a little bit more of a back and forth than someone who is, probably crunched for time, in the middle of doing something. They're in bed at night. They're in between, they're on their lunch hour. Like, oh, I know I need to knock this out for my kid or something like that. And so, they want their choices clearly laid out for them. So we're going to show you our approach to how we handle this. So you can see kind of the differences of what that looks like for a customer. So I'm going to hand it over to Mairead now. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and then we'll let Mairead take that over.
Yeah. So I'm going to walk through a quick presentation of what this looks like in our app. As Travis said, this isn't the only one you could use, but it's just a good idea of what this might look like for us. So we're looking at a curator called Emily Hudson. They've set their profile picture as their dog. So the curator in this instance, we're looking at a fake music school, and this is a teacher. So they teach on Mondays and Thursdays, and we're going to have a client take a look at that person's schedule from the other side. So say this is a returning client or somebody who has gotten a referral or looked you up online and decided I really want to see Emily Hudson. So we're going to go to my customer account for Blair. So Blair logs into their customer account. They have some lessons on the schedule already. So maybe this is their second student. And they're going into the store and they've decided while they're in voice lessons, they'd like to take piano with this teacher, Emily. So then they go ahead and they just add a weekly piano subscription to their cart, right? So I picked through. In this instance, we have the option for an intro lesson because this might be their first piano lesson. And so if you wanted to, you could go into the cart. They saw that coupon for the intro. I could type it in here and go ahead and apply it as well, which would be great for if you have trial pricing. But what first we're going to do is go into pre-schedule. So you can see what this looks like when they're looking at picking a scheduled time on the schedule. So I'm going to click a widget from my series. This student is going to be in Los Angeles. And then we know, as we said before, that the curator that they'd like to see is Emily Hudson. Now, they're going to want to start in this instance on September 22nd. And what's great is that we've limited these options here to be contiguous with the schedule. And we set that up with the availability. And there's a bunch of different ways to get this set up with the availability, right? You can limit your schedule to just contiguous booking. You can decide the gaps that you want to present in your schedule to your students. And this is just one way to kind of see, okay, now this teacher can keep a contiguous schedule. They're not going to have big gaps. And then their schedule can continue to build out from there. And like Travis said, if they look at the schedule and they're like, I really like Emily Hudson, I really want to see her, then they're going to reach out and call you anyways. And another great thing too is say the
Right.
student.
Can I add something? Can I add something really quickly?
Yes, please.
So just because we have a lot of words that we use internally, so contiguous is
Sure.
not one that is often used out in the
Fair.
wild. So that just means that like things are touching one another. So like one appointment touches the next appointment without a gap. That's contiguous instead of continuous. So anyway.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And then the other thing I just kind of wanted to present for like if you have this scheduling opening on your side is that, so for example, I'm in my profile Blair Waldorf, they already have like lessons on our schedule, but say this customer didn't have lessons on the schedule and they didn't know the curator that they wanted to choose, you can still have the option for any curator. And if you've set your availability up this way, say I could go to Thursday, September 25th, and I still just have a couple of options here and it's not so overwhelming with the number that I could choose from. So there's a lot of different ways to make this an advantage for your business.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you can do is so like, let's say you have a multi-location service business, or I'm sorry, a multi-room service business where you're running, you maybe have classes going on at the same time, you have private lessons going on at the same time. So if, of course you want to give people, enough options that you can fill in your studio, you can fill in their schedules. So if someone is seeing only one set of times, like Mairead showed, you can add additional curators to the selection so that you can see additional options that, maybe Mairead doesn't have time at 2:00 on Tuesday, but Emma does have time at 2:00 on Tuesday. So the point is you have, unlike most other software out there, and I'll plug our own for this because I'm very proud of it. It took us a very long time to build this. You absolutely can control at a granular level how much variety you want to give students, customers. And, this is one of the major sort of hesitations with smaller personal services. I don't want to turn my calendar over to an online portal.
I see that a lot online.
Yeah.
It's a really
super
common fear.
Yeah, I completely get it. But there are tools like this that allow you to manage that. And you can always say, if you see a time, if you don't see a time you want, give me a call. I literally don't know, with the exception of like maybe if you are a single individual only and all of your transactions are over the phone, okay, maybe you're not going to benefit from a tool like that. But as soon as you add any other teachers into the mix, as soon as you add any other responsibilities into the mix, uh, I literally do not know anyone that would not benefit from that feature alone. And so, the thing to take away from all of this, obviously, so we have our version of how we have solved that pain point. But whatever you do, please take that information. I didn't make this up, right? It's part of human psychology. It's been verified for years. It's a kind of a Lindy piece of information, right? Lindy, like persistent. It's been around for a long time. It will abide. Like, do not give your customers, do not give your employees too many choices. It actually will not. It will not improve your business. It will not improve your bottom line. It will not improve your customer satisfaction. It will not improve your employee satisfaction. Now, you don't want to be arbitrary about it and wield a hammer and people will quickly leave your business, on both sides. They won't want to work for you. They won't want to benefit from your service. But, reasonable, structured, predictable choice is going to benefit your personal service business every time. So, Marie, do you have anything to add to that?
No,
I talked for a
absolutely. I
while there at the
agree.
end.
Oh,
Cool.
you covered it all.
So if you have questions, reach out to us, whether you're a customer or not. We're happy to answer. Happy to, if you have a topic you want to talk about, we're happy to do that on the webinar. And do we know our topic next month, right? Or did we decide on that
No,
yet?
we will be announcing
Okay,
that
all
at the end
right.
of this
So,
week.
okay, so I can't say what our
No.
next month will be. So, but thank you for joining us. And if you guys have questions, just let us know.